Good evening, good evening, good evening. Willie A. Price speaks, and I am Willie A. Price speaks. I am here tonight. I'm not doing a Better You lifestyle. I'm actually here to talk about and share with you a 10-year celebration, a 10-year celebration. And this celebration is based on January 10th, 2012. I went through a bunch of life-changing situations that went on in my life. And this was the result of that life changing situation, January 10th, 2012. So I'm going to start off with sharing with you just two things that came about during that time where I met Les Brown, and Les Brown encouraged me to write my first book after this accident that I had. He encouraged me to write my first book. I met Les Brown. I was at a conference in Cleveland, Ohio, the George Fraser Power Networking Conference, and was introduced to him. And we hit it off right away when we met each other and became good friends. And he said to me, I was telling about the things I was doing and different things I was doing with young people in the community and back home in Buffalo, New York. And I said, one of the things I wanted to do for my business was write a book. And he said, well, what's stopping you? I said, well, I keep trying to write it, but I just can't figure out how to do it. He said, well, what kind of book is it? And I said, a real estate book. I want to write a real estate book on property management, and it was called Property Management Made Easy. I had a title and everything for it. And he said, well, what stopped you? I said, I just can't figure out how to do it. He said, well, what do you like to write about? He said, do you write already? I said, yes. He said, what do you like to write about? I said, well, I like writing about Black history. I said, I'd write an article for a home paper called the Buffalo Challenger, and I write Black history events in that. He said, well, why don't you write a book on Black history? So I ended up doing that. I went back home, and I already had a lot of information, and I created this Black history book. And so the next year, when I returned to the George Fraser Power Networking Conference, I presented a copy of the book to Mr. Les Brown. He and I met up at the conference, and he invited me to be on a show that he was doing an interview on. And then after the interview, he sat down with me and another group of people, and we talked about, just what our goals and our ideas were. And one of my things was I wanted to share my situation where this situation happened on January 10th, 2012, where I fell 25 feet from the top of a roof, shattered my left ankle, broke all the bones in my right foot, and the doctors told me that I would never walk again. They said, you should be totally paralyzed. You'll probably never, ever walk again. If you do walk, you're going to have a crutch or walkers for the rest of your life. And I kept saying to them, I said, no, this can't be me. And I remember I put this book together after that time when I started back, walking and all the other things. So this book, No Dream is Impossible, the 4 W's to a Successful Life, that's how this book came about. And we recently changed the title to No Dream is Impossible, the 4 W's to a Successful Life, How to Overcome Tragedies. And that's what this workbook does. It shows you how to overcome tragedies. And that's how that book was created. And I always tell people, when I do my presentations and workshops and things like that, I always talk about my grandmother because she was always a big influence on me since I was like 8, 9 years old. Little kid. We moved when we left my dad. We was about 5 or 6 years old, and we moved into a house with her, and she really took me under her wing and did a lot of things with me because I didn't have, I had some uncles and things like that. But she really took care of me because my mom was going to school and, trying to work and feed the family. And she would say to me, you can do anything that you set your mind to do. And I used to say that, why do you say that to me all the time? And she would say it to me constantly. Every time I look up, she would look at me and I'd come in the house from doing something. And she'd say, you can do anything that you set your mind to do. And I would look at her and I said, oh, and she told me, she said, because I noticed that when you have a desire, and that's what it was, when it was something I desired to do. And this is what I use in my programs too. She said, when you want something, when you really want something, and somebody tells you can't do it, you will figure out a way to do it. And that's what came about. I had a desire. Whenever I had a desire, when you really desire something in life, and people, you can't figure out how you're going to do it. You can't figure out how you're going to make it happen. But if it's something you really desire, you will trust and find that you will have the strength in yourself to do the things that you want to do. And so I use desire and trust and believe. And if you ever see my posts, I'm always writing trust and believe. And I'm always saying, I don't really say desire a lot because I don't want to give that away when I do some of the things that I do in my presentations. But it's the desire is what comes first. When you really desire something. And then when you trust and believe in your strengths and your abilities and your willingness to commit to those goals, you'll find that you can do anything that you set your mind to do. And that's what my grandmother would always say to me. And it just stuck with me throughout my entire life. So growing up, when I was in school, I had teachers that told me, I had a teacher that told me, you should be dead or totally, you'll probably be dead or dead or in jail by the time you're 18. You'll be dead or in jail by the time you're 18. And then went on into school, and I go into high school, and I'm having all kind of problems. I was kicked out of several schools. So of course I was having a lot of issues, and a lot of it was anger problems. But I was always good at math in school. I was always good at math. I could read. And the reason why I could read so well, which really pissed a lot of teachers off, I could read very well, and I was very articulate with my my vocabulary, is because I told you earlier, I said I was suspended. I was kicked out of a lot of schools. So when I was suspended from school, I wasn't allowed to go outside. And because I wasn't allowed to go outside, I had to stay in the house. I couldn't watch television. And my mom, at that time, we had the Britannica encyclopedias. And I would lay on the floor and I would read those encyclopedias every day. And I'd be suspended so often that that's all I would do, is just lay on the floor and read encyclopedias all day. So as a result of that, when I would return back to school, of course, I knew more than some of the kids and some of the teachers, because I'm having a vocabulary, I'm reading, and I wasn't a good writer. I wasn't a very good writer, but I was a very good reader, and I was very articulate, and I knew a lot of things from reading the encyclopedias. So when I would come back, it'd get me in trouble because of course I'm always going to show off, and because I was good at math, I would do my math problems and get my work done, and then I'd sit around and harass other kids that didn't do the work. But during that time, again, I always enjoyed making money. So what I did was, I had a stepfather that came into the house, and he saw that same thing that my grandmother saw in me, that I was always out trying to make money. I was always out, trying to make money to buy clothes for school. And I was 11, 12 years old at the time, 10, 11 years old. And one day he took me out and he said, I want you to go for a ride with me. And I refused to go for a ride with him because I didn't like him, because until he came into the house, I was the man of the house. So I just, no, I'm not doing it. And he forced me to get in the car with him. And he said to me, he got us in the car, and we're driving. He took us to this certain part of the side of Buffalo, and we're driving down the street. And he would stop at a house, go in the house. He would come out and he would be counting this money, and he would put the money on the seat. And then he would drive to the next house. He'd come out, count the money, put the money on the seat. And he did this for like 3, 4 houses on this one street. And I finally said, where are you getting all this money from? Because this money is piled up on the armrest in between he and I in the car. We're driving down the street. And he said to me, you saw those houses that I went to? And I said, yes. He said, well, what I do is I buy these houses and fix them up, and people pay me to live in them. And I said, they give you all that money? And he was like, yes, they give me all this money. He became my best friend that day, because now I had a desire to get what he had, to do what he was doing, to make the money that he was making. Imagine 10, 11 years old, you see stacks of money just sitting in front of you, and somebody says, oh, I just buy these houses and people pay me to live in them. So that was where my desire came from to get into real estate. And then once I set my mind to something, you could do anything you set your mind to. I was focused on him. And I trust and believe that he would give me the things that I needed to be involved in real estate. And as a result of that, he told me, he said, I'll show you what I do. But in order for me to show you, I need you to stay in school, stop getting suspended, stop getting kicked out of schools, and I need you to graduate. And I want you to go to college. And the reason why I want you to go to college is this way, when you graduate, you can get a job and make money. And if the real estate doesn't work out for you, you will still have a way to make money when if the real estate doesn't work out. And so that was, again, my desire. That was my desire and my trust to believe in him that he was going to teach me those things. And that's what we did for the next, 8, 9, 10 years that we were together. I would follow him and watch him, and he would teach me the things he did to be able to do that. And so, and I have this trust up this up here right here. And this is something I do in my program. And so I'm using a slide that I do in my program. And I'm going to kind of skip by that one because that doesn't apply to what I'm talking about. But during that time, I learned to surround myself with better. So I started buying real estate. I bought 20 properties. He died before I bought my first house. I ended up buying 20 properties in the city of Buffalo. And I got my degree in mental health. A teacher told me that I would never amount to anything and I would never make it through college. And again, because I had the desire and I knew what I promised my stepfather that I would do, I graduated from college. I have a degree in mental health. And as you can see in this picture, you see a picture of me and Les Brown up in the corner with the first book that I wrote. And then my friend George Fraser, who whenever he comes to Buffalo, he invites me to do his introduction for his keynote. Then up in the top corner there, you'll see me with another book with Jawanza Kunjufu. And I want to talk about Jawanza Kunjufu because that's who I emulate a lot of my programs after. He does what is called right brain learning techniques. And I studied his information and I study him and I read his books. And that's how I came up with the programs that I do with the children, with the boys, especially the boys. And that's what he focuses on is boys, because boys tend to fall behind after they get to 3rd and 4th grade because they don't read as much as girls. They don't write as much as girls. They don't do as much literature and things like that as girls do. And so that's what Jawanza Kunjufu, and he's the gentleman up at the top. And when he comes to Buffalo or whenever we get together, we always exchange books because he's always writing books and I'm always writing books. So when we get together, we always exchange books with each other. In the center section there, you'll see me with Mayor Lovely Warren, she just finally came out of office this year. My pastor, Darius Pridgeon, the mayor of Buffalo, Byron Brown, and then my friend Nami, who's big into all kind of network marketing type things. And in the center, you'll see a group of young people that I was working with. I put together a program called This Week in Black History. And This Week in Black History was an annual event that I did in the city of Buffalo where I would get together with local artists and photographers and different talents that I knew in the city of Buffalo. And then we would do different events throughout Black History Month and raise money to give to young people to help them to pay for school. These two young ladies that you see in the picture, we're on Channel 7 because Channel 7 heard about us and brought us onto the show. And these young ladies were the recipients of those awards. We gave out $250 to each young lady. And one young lady, she just graduated from Canisius College. The other young lady, I think she may have graduated this year, but she was into art and she's a very good artist. And so we brought them on to Channel 7 and to talk about the program and what we were doing and to discuss their talents and how they were chosen as the recipients for the program. And we did this program, and I had some great people. My friend Doug Ruffin, my friend James, I forget James' last name that fast. And then King Shad, who came and did some gospel rap for us. I mean, he was always a big supporter. My friend, Goodness, I couldn't think of what her other name was. My friend Goodness, she would come on and do poetry. We had the African Culture Center. We had some young children that came and did dance for us. So every year we would do this event, and we would raise money to give to young people who were trying to do something in college or in high school or whatever they were in, and we would donate money to them to help them to further their education. And that was something that I did for a number of years. During that time, like I said, I was surrounding myself with people and I was doing things in the community. But then, like I said, I created the book, No Dream is Impossible. And I went through a situation where after I started walking and everything else, I hurt myself and I ended up gaining almost 60 pounds. And it put me in a state of depression because I couldn't do anything. I could not see my feet. That's how bad it was. But I was able to work out and do some things and get my confidence back. And then, as you can see, I lost that weight. So, I mean, I went through a lot in those past 10 years. And so I want to share with you the event that happened on January 10th, 2012. I had a fire at a rental property, went to the property because I paid some guys to come and repair the roof so we could start rehabbing the house. And the guys never came back. They started on the job, never came back. So being me, I said, I'll go over there and do it myself. And I had a guy who was supposed to help me do it. I get to the property. He calls me and says he changed his mind. He's not going to be able to come help me. So now I'm aggravated. I got all this stuff over here at this house and I don't have anywhere to put it. And so I said, well, I'm just going to go ahead and start on the roof myself. But I get up there and I'm so aggravated. And I have what is called a ladder hook that hooks onto the roof, and you slide that ladder hook down as you're working on the roof. And because I was so aggravated, I wasn't paying attention to the fact that instead of sliding the ladder over, I lifted it to move it over. And the weight of the ladder slid down between my legs and the ladder shot off the roof. As a result, I ended up rolling down the roof and hitting the edge of the roof, and I started falling head first towards the concrete driveway. And I remember something I said as I was starting to fall. I said, God, please don't let me hit my head. I said, God, please don't let me hit my head. And I have this picture up here with the wings and everything because I normally don't share this unless I'm normally in a church service or a church program. I don't normally share this part of my story. But as I was falling, because I told you I was the only person on the roof, and as I was falling, I said, God, please don't let me hit my head, because I was falling off this roof head first towards the concrete driveway, and heard a voice. The voice said, grab the ladder. And I looked up to see who said grab the ladder, because I told you I was the only person on the roof. And when I looked up, it made me see the ladder that I had used to climb up on the house. And I reached out and I grabbed the ladder with my hand, and that's what made my feet swing underneath me. And then I go through this whole story about landing on my feet and dropping and rolling and how it felt like someone was holding me. And I'm not going to go into all that because, again, I use this in one of the presentations that I do. But I wanted to share sort of a little bit about my story. And I've always shared it with people. But as I landed, it felt like somebody was holding me and said, don't plant your feet, drop and roll. And when I felt my feet touch the ground, I dropped and rolled. But my left foot was out too far and it shattered my left ankle and broke all the bones in my right foot. I was laying on the ground. People saw me and they started running down the street, and they came and they called the ambulance, and they had the ambulance come to, to pick me up and everything. And so they're looking at me. And they're trying to see, where I fell from. And when they looked up and saw where I fell from, they're checking me because they're trying to figure out, okay, he's not bleeding. He doesn't have not one scratch on him, but we can see that my foot was hanging off my leg, and I couldn't move it. So they knew I had shattered that left ankle. They knew something was wrong with that left foot, but that was all they saw. And they couldn't figure out what was going on with me. And so they took me to the hospital, And the doctors came in there. They asked me what happened, and I'm telling them what happened. And I'm, sharing this story and hearing the voice and feel like somebody hold me, drop and roll. I'm telling this whole story. And the doctor's just looking at me like, that's not possible. That's not possible. And the nurse was saying, well, what do you mean, doctor? It's not possible. He said, at the rate of speed that he was falling, by the time he felt his feet touch, he should not have been able to react to drop and roll. By the time he felt his feet touch, he should have shattered his spine or broke all the bones in his body, because he should not have had time to react to be able to drop and roll. I said, but doc, I told you somebody was holding me. And that's what I was saying to the doctor. And the doctor said, it's not possible. I don't understand. That's just not possible. So then he leaves out and he comes back in, and he comes in and he said, I don't understand it. He always would say, I don't understand it. And I said, now, and the nurse said, now what, doctor? And we're both looking at him, because I'm laying there, and they had to put these rods in my leg because my leg had swelled up so big, they couldn't do surgery on it, but they could do surgery on the right foot where I had the screws in it. And the doctor says, I don't understand it. He said, I'm looking at the x-rays, and it shows that you shattered your left ankle when you fell, but it also shows that you broke all the bones in your right foot, which meant that both feet had to have touched the ground before you dropped and rolled. But that's not possible, because at the rate of speed, you should have shattered everything. And there's no way that you could have touched both feet like that and dropped and rolled and not shattered everything. And he just couldn't understand it. I kept telling him, I said, but doc, I'm telling you, this is what happened. And they took me into surgery. They brought me back and they took me into surgery, and they were going to take out my left ankle the next time when I came back. And they were about to take me into surgery. And I said to the doctor, so how long before I can go to track practice? And the doctor looked at me and he said, what do you mean track practice? I said, after you take out my ankle, how long before I can go to track practice? And the doctor just looked at me and said, I keep telling you, you'll probably never walk again. And if you do walk, you're going to have a walker or a crutches or a cane for the rest of your life, but you'll never be able to run track again. I said, doc, I got to go to track practice. And that is when I came up with the 4 W's to a successful life. That is how that all came about, because as I was going through this situation, I had to understand who I was, where I was trying to go, what is it going to take for me to get there, and then why I was willing to commit to the goal that I had. And that's how the 4 W's came about, because I was in a situation where I had to look at who I was and who they said I was going to be. They said I would never walk again. And I kept saying, no, I need to walk again. Not only do I need to walk again, but I want to go to track practice. And I want to run track and field again, because I love running track and field. I love competing and meeting people. And then I had to look at where I was trying to go. I was trying to go to the track. I was trying to go out and work out. I was trying to walk. I was trying to do all these different things. And then what was it going to take for me to get there? I started looking at those weights that I had, those casts that I had on my legs, and I started using those as weights. And I was doing leg lifts and leg curls. I lay on the bed and I curl my legs back towards me. I sit on the edge of the bed and I lift my legs up. I get on the floor and I do push-ups. I do crunches. I was doing all the stuff that I was doing like I was getting ready for a track meet. And I did that every single day, 3-4 times a day, every day. Every time I thought about it, every time I would touch that walker, I would get up and I was doing it. And at the same time, while I was doing this walker, while I was in that walker for those 3 months, I was working on rental properties, because I still had rental properties. And I would get in the car with a walker and go over and do plumbing and do painting and lay carpet and doing drywall with casts on my legs. I was in this walker and I was doing that stuff every day when I was in those 3 months during my time when I was supposed to be sitting at home, resting and relaxing and trying to get, as the doctor said, just sitting home. But I couldn't sit home. And my why for doing all this is because of just what I just said. I did not want to rely on anybody to take care of me and do things for me. And I've always been that way. I've always been independent. So that was my why. So whenever things got tough, my why am I doing this, that over and superseded everything that would make me want to give up on my goal and just say, okay, the doc was right. I'm not going to walk again. But instead, I would say, okay, this isn't working. So now I need to figure out a new way how to do what I need to do so I can walk again and so I can run again. And so I was, like I said, I was getting in the car, driving with casts on my legs, driving over to rental properties, going up flights of stairs with a walker, carrying a tool bag, and going in and doing work on rental properties. I was doing all that stuff with that situation. 3 months later, I walked into the doctor's office. Desire, trust, and believe. And that's what it was, that desire that to be able to walk again, to be able to run again. That desire is what carried me through what I needed to do. The trusting and believing that I was going to be able to run again is what motivated me. Using my special skills, which was how I got ready for track, that's what allowed me to be able to run again. And so that's why still at the age of going on 60 years old, I still go to track practice and I still work out on the track and I still run and I still compete, because that has always been my desire to be able to do that. And God has blessed me to be able to do that. So I was walked into the doctor's office 3 months later. 4 months after that, I ran my first mile. And I've been walking and running and competing and coaching and doing all the things that I've been doing. And this is a video, and I don't know if it's going to show. This was actually, let me go back to that. See if that is, I'm not sure if it's going to show because of the way this is set up. So it may not show. No, it's not going to show. But this actually is a video of me running in a track meet that I competed in Toronto. This was my first track meet, which was about a year and a half later after I started back walking and got into my exercises and things like this. This was the video, and the video normally shows when I'm doing my presentations of me running the 60 meters in Canada. This was at York University track and field indoors, and I ran the 60 meters and actually came in second place in this race. This was a year and a half after I fell. They shattered my left ankle and broke all the bones in my right foot, and they took all that out. And this was what the result was. I was able to run my first track meet, and that's where I ran in York University. And later I went on to run some outdoor meets at York and in Toronto. I ran the World Masters, then I ran the 400 meters and did the long jump. I did the long jump at York University at several meets and actually took second or third place. I have a couple medals. I took third place after my accident. I took third place in, I think, outdoors, and I took second place indoors in the long jump at one of these meets in Toronto. So I was able to compete. But I also enjoyed working. This was when I ran at the World Masters, Ontario Masters track and field meet in 2017. So that was just, 5 years later, that's when I ran the 400 meters and did the long jump at the North American World Championships, and that was in Toronto as well. I competed in the 400 meters and did the long jump. So like I said, I never gave up believing that I would be able to walk again. And not only walk again, but run again. And that's me there representing the USA. And we received the Olympic uniforms and sweatsuits and everything from the Olympics that took place that year, the previous year. So we got all kinds of things to represent the United States over at this World Championship meet. And that was me being able to compete in that. Like I said, just 5 years after they said that I would never walk again, I was running international and national track meets. You can do anything that you set your mind to do. And like I said, my grandmother, I give her all the credit in the world, because so many things that I go by and live by, I realized that came from her. You know, she would say to me, he may not come when you want him, but he's always on time. And so when I was falling off that roof and I said, God, please don't let me hit my head. And all the things that happened between me falling off that roof and landing on the ground had to be God. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. So learning to do those things, I just learned that taking what God gave me, I said he wasn't ready for me to do anything but his will. So I started creating my programs. I started working with young people and showing them that they too could follow their dreams and set and achieve their goals. And I started using the 4 W's to teach young people how to be successful and how to set and achieve goals, understanding who they are, using my friend Jawaza Kunjufu, using his right brain learning techniques and teaching schools and teachers and parents and the students themselves how to use right brain learning techniques in their education. And you'd be surprised at how more confident these kids are when they're able to use these skills, because now the fear of learning and the discouragement of learning is no longer there, because I've taught them how they can do learning on their own. And even with we do what's called music therapy with our kids. When they first walk into the room, I don't say anything. All I do is play, and normally it's a rap song. So I'll play an instrumental rap song for them. And I'll just sit there. And when they walk in, they're all wired up because they're out in the halls with their friends. They're laughing, playing, they're running around. And when they walk into the classroom, they hear the music, they go to their seats, they sit down, they may be talking for a few minutes, and they'll just sit back. And once I see the room has calmed down, I turn the music off and I get up and I start the program. And you'd be amazed at how big of a difference just doing that is on their lives, because they get a symbol of a symbolic position of peace. And you can see the peacefulness sitting down in them, and they just ready to do the things that we're doing. What are we doing now, Mr. Price? What are we going to do? And then we get into our program and I start talking to them. And a lot of times I let them do most of the talking because it's their program. I tell them, I said, I'm going to lead some things, but it's your program and I'm going to let you guys take over. And we do this for 8 weeks. We do it for 10 weeks. We do it for 16 weeks. We've even done it for 20 weeks. So these young men are coming out, and these are kids the teacher said were, they're not going to do anything. They're not going to be anything. They're not going to go anywhere, which was the same thing they said to me. I'll be dead or in jail by the time I'm 18. I'm sure that was been said to some of these kids, because they were acting out and getting suspended and fighting and doing all the same things I did as a kid. And I wanted to show them that no dream is impossible. They can do anything that they set their minds to do. And so that's why I get up every day and I do the things that I do with young people, from coaching track and working with young people. And I have a track club that I started in Niagara County, Niagara Falls, in the city of Niagara Falls, where the school actually allows me to use the track to work with these kids for free. And I have kids that come from all over Niagara County and even from Buffalo, New York, to run on my track club. And it's not just a track club, because what we do is we do self-esteem, self-awareness, self-confidence. We do everything to help them to understand who they are, understanding who you are. Remember the 4 W's, understanding who you are, where you're trying to go, what's it going to take for you to get there, and why you want to commit to it. And we do that in the track and field world as well. And when we do that with the track and field with them, these kids, they set goals and they do things that they never imagined or never thought they could do. And we had such a great time this past summer with the great kids that I had this year. And we even had a 3-year-old who even surprised me. And she came out there and she set the track on fire. But all the kids, that was the motivation, that they could do anything that they set their minds to do. There was no, I can't do it. I would say, there's not, you can't do it. You just haven't figured out a way to do it. And that's what we would do. If they couldn't do something, it wasn't working the way we were doing it, we would keep working on it until we figured out the right way to do it. And so these kids, and I told them, I said, I'm going to be here as long as you need me to be here. So I have kids right now that's running track in high school and in middle school. And I check on them and I check to see what times they're running and see what their events are. And I'm looking at, because I know in the summer, I'm going to have these kids, hopefully have these kids back with me. And we're going to be working together. And I'll be able to say, yeah, I saw you ran this in this track meet. I saw you ran that. And then be able to talk to them about what happened in that meet, and then help them to become better or proficient at that, as well as still becoming more self-sufficient and self-confident about who they are and building up their awareness. Because when they understand who they are, nobody can ever tell them who they are, because they already know. So you can't tell me something that I already know, and you can't tell them something that they already know. Again, I just wanted to share this 10th anniversary that God has blessed me to see 10 years after falling, January 10th, 2012, 25 feet from the top of a roof, where He allowed me to not only be blessed to be able to walk again, but to run and compete. And then not only do that, but be able to work with young people to show them how they too could set and achieve goals and be the persons that they want to be, and to believe in themselves and have that desire to know that no dream is impossible and that they can do anything that they set their minds to do. Again, my name is Willie A. Price. Willie A. Price Speaks. You guys have a blessed day. See you in another 10 years.